right way now. We're going to share that in, except for those on Snake Island. We have a lot to cover. Headlines for what will be the last day of the year, 2/28. It is 1 a.m. Eastern. It is just after 8 a.m. Monday morning in Ukraine. It is going to be a very tumultuous week in the economic markets. The Russian stock market taking almost a 50% hit. The ruble also tumbling and taking a 30% hit. I'm going to try and check the numbers one last time. I have all my notes. Sorry, that was a vest. We should start the whole thing over. It's a heavy vest. Well, combat operations are now proceeding in the Ukraine. This is no longer a military exercise, as the media wanted to report for a week. And, yeah. You talk to Germany, they want to talk about war. The Western media now having to admit that if President Putin doesn't slow his military down, we're looking at war. No, if we're to believe what we're seeing in the media, I'm supposed to make sure it's up, okay. If we are supposed to believe what we are seeing in the media, and I say that very specifically, if we believe what we see. We know about the ability to deep fake a video. We know about psychological operations. We know about things like MK Ultra. We know about things, literally subliminal programming in all aspects of media and art and entertainment. So, I welcome all of you. This is a discussion of data points, the headlines that have circulated in the last 23 hours or 24 hours since we saw each other. We're going to do this every night at 11 p.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. Excuse me, I said 11 p.m. Eastern. 11 p.m. Mountain, 1 a.m. Eastern. But again, it's about 6 minutes after the hour in Ukraine. So, if you like what I'm doing, I would appreciate it if you'd hit the like button. If you're finding this now in the live format because of Twitter or Facebook, would you please subscribe to this? I'm going to figure out how to time it so that the computer automatically just goes at 11. I apologize for being a minute or two late. I'm trying to type everything in to post it. But I think there's a way to copy and paste and drop all that in, and I'll figure it out. The notes are getting longer. As of just this afternoon, I had 3 pages of notes. I'm not going to lie to you. I normally I'm the night guy. So, 20 minutes before sunup, that's when I get in my coffin. And it was very difficult to tear away from my normal life of, well, it's Sunday. What's the talking point? Oh, no. I don't want that yet. I want to still, what's going on live, where, and who's reporting it. Because let's go to Ian so-and-so with his story in the field. That's just it. His story. Let's go to Marlene Says We Can with an iPhone and she's running down the alley because the tanks are behind her. I want to see that. I want to hear that. I want to see with my own eyes, is this even real? I may not be speaking tonight to the Nintendo generation. Okay. but it is a story I'm going to have to talk about. There's a couple that are very interesting that are not in the data points of the headlines regarding no longer a U.S. military exercise, but a frontal invasion, as well as the pincher move coming in from Belarus in the north and from the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea in the south and Crimea. So here's the data points and digestion of Western media. Initial expectations by Russian high command of the ease of invasion and growing logistical issues now have some initial, it's getting tough to read my writing. Some initial forces now having to pause and await for not only logistical support, but for reinforcements. I say that threefold because early reports are true. The Russian dissident, no. Ukrainians were blowing up the train tracks leading in from again, all roads lead to Rome? Not if you're Russian. All roads lead to Mother Russia. Yeah, well, the trains that you're going to need, and that's again, there were photographs and short videos showing intercontinental ballistic missiles sitting on the rails, but nothing, again, the rail car and the missile. Wait a minute. You just don't drop that off and keep driving. Meanwhile, I mean, you could. Bad idea. But in reversing the process, you couldn't, if you need to get to one of those, but you've got 18 of them in the way. See, in the world of tactical and logistics, that wouldn't make sense. So that's why I still question those photos. Because there were very few. Yet we're seeing countless videos of, and some estimations of one particular column of tanks were approaching 3.5 miles long. This is not going to be a battle of tanks. This is a battle of the people of Ukraine to repel the Russian army. And I say that because there are comments from the Pentagon in the Pentagon briefing that, let me get the quote. Pentagon says it expects Kiev, say it right, Kiev, over hundreds of years, the borders have changed, the names have changed, but the people and their culture have made. Why are the English now lisping? Pentagon now says it expects Kiev and Ukraine to fall in the next 96 hours. First of all, if you're the Pentagon and that's all the best news you got, shut up. Meanwhile, the reverse now 96 hours, because hindsight and short term is now crystal clear. When President Biden was asked at a press conference about our intelligence and did he share it with President Xi of China, he wouldn't answer it. Well, fast forward 96 hours as the discussion of the real-time intelligence in the international community, because we spent a lot of time thanking everybody for that. Turns out, in my discussion, or our discussion on the Conspiracy Keepers with Jackie Selby and Backlash LaRue and Joe Monaco, I asked Joe a very specific question. Hey, do you think President Xi and President Putin had an off-the-record conversation? And it was twofold. Was it just them, or was it their proxies meeting and talking on behalf of each other? I'm not sleeping enough and I'm not smoking. By the way, these patches are just burning the hell off my arms. So thank you for the tips or ideas how to stop this demon, but I'm working on it. China. Fast forward 96 hours. The United States shared intelligence with China on Ukraine. China had a conversation with Russia. What are we spending hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, now trillions of dollars, on national security, intelligence gathering, satellites, drones, evasive spyware, the CIA, and the rest of the crack staff, when we're sharing? In a global community, we share. Well, you know what? The Ukrainians just got fisted sideways with their pants on with an ashtray because of the, again, vast foreign policy experience and his vast experience with the international community, Joe Biden. Because if Jen Psaki is in charge, her behavior on Meet the Prostitutes was abysmal. Meet the Press. Was Jen Psaki on Meet the Press? I don't know. I didn't watch. I saw the clips of, yep, I can't take it anymore. I don't want this. There was something else, though, about the Pentagon. Oh, yeah, the 96 hours. But there was another data point in there. Out of the Pentagon press conference and Biden's White House press conference. I'm skimming here, let me. Oh, yes, that was the... And now there's calls in the in the global community. They want to try Vladimir Putin as a war criminal. But if it's only a military exercise that just turned into a war, and you want to put him on trial now, don't you have to defeat him and catch him first? I'm just pointing out the obvious of calls for international court to try Vladimir Putin for war crimes. Let's start with our data points. All of these are on my Twitter feed using the symbol at @VScooterMcGee. Many of them are being re-put on my Facebook page. However, it was brought to my attention by the good people of Facebook and by a few of my friends that since February 23rd, I have been shadow banned and that most of my content is dropping down your inability to have attention span of 10 people or less. Ending time 2/27/22, the data points. Initial expectations of Russian high command of the ease of the invasion are now growing logistical issues, which some now suggest we have to pause. And that's got tangented. Yes, there has been a pause. It was interesting as the media, the Western media, and what's accepted, credited media, were alleging tanks going everywhere and people chaos and dogs and cats and all the problems. No, the tanks are stopping at the lights, and the tanks aren't tanks, they're armored personnel carrier, but keep synonymizing and homogenizing words. Small arms fire. Well, we know now, coming direct from Ukrainian sources, that they were rounding up the last of the saboteurs. And in the Russian playbook, armored personnel carriers, tanks, paratroopers, saboteurs were not even in the top 5. Now, the top 3, paratroopers, saboteurs. Again, in the armored personnel carriers, in the tanks, yeah. Paratroop, yeah. Saboteurs. So they're in the insert. Hence the reasoning or rationale for martial law, because look, aren't they supposed to wear their uniforms? We're checking in with a military historian here today on the BBC to discuss the cultural significance and importance of the regality and the necessary tactical purposes of uniforms. Over to you, Ian. What is that? Being in civilian clothes, if you're in the military, behind the theater of operations only matters if you get caught. The shock. As Ukrainians are making Molotov cocktails, the idea that the Russians would just dress as Ukrainians and misbehave somehow seems to baffle the Western mind of the media. Armored personnel carriers, paratroopers, saboteurs. Oh, the tanks. Tanks, that show of force. This is about quarantining the cities. This isn't about invading them. You just need to choke them all off. And there's a dozen cities. Oh, there's more than enough military might to do that now. But again, if you listened last night, my opinion is on the snipers. And again, the citizens. Because the use of the word militia appeared very briefly this morning. Hence why I kind of stayed awake a little longer than I should have. Wait a minute. Here in the United States and in the West, with the convoy approaching the White House, the Congress, the capital, the nation's capital, White House capital, across the thing in the water and the monuments. Go look for the big owl and then see where Congress and the White House are juxtaposed in the owl that can only be seen from space or from the air. He's spreading misinformation again. Well, I like to entertain. The tanks show of force. The need to move them around, that's the armored personnel carriers. And again, the helicopters and the planes for the paratroopers, but Soviets have already established air cover. However, there's no bombings. It's been shelling and missile attacks. Meanwhile, in Moscow and other cities in Russia, the Western media continuously now amazed that there are people in Russia and in Moscow who are protesting. Don't they know what could happen to them? Well, you might want to get those problem starters, to do a story about what happens. Gulag, excuse me, Siberia. Climate change and it is warming up in Siberia. Actually, no. And the Russians have a whole bunch of greenhouses in Siberia because they're desperate to feed their people. Hence why they want Ukraine, because it's the breadbasket of Europe. But you don't, again, climate change. I know, you're good. Be well. But Western media is now having to report hundreds of arrests in the Soviet Union by protesters by the Russian police. There's not the Russian police. Hundreds. That number as of tomorrow Eastern time, we're approaching 8:23 in the Ukraine. You'll be happy to know that number is over 2,500 people now. Hundreds. Thank God you're not in charge of my abacus. Back to the timeline. Russia is still trying to gain a stronghold but in the map, and I will put, as soon as this is over, it will be the picture for this video. The latest map showing where the incursions are and how far the Russian military has actually gone versus what here at the BBC and, ABC and NBC. You know, we turned our building yellow and blue over the weekend out of solidarity. Oh, you are there. Good. All right. You better stock up on this. The media is just falling over liquor stores of, managers with man buns who want to let the world know they're shocked at what Putin's done. Hey, and I know Stoli's easy. You want to mention Smirnoff? How many other and just Russian vodka? How about the Russian wine? Oh, ladies, calm down. You know what? That'll piss them off. Women, if you love Russian wine, would you tell me what wine that's Russian that you like? I'm just curious. Because you're my kind of lady. I mean, the Italian wines and the French one. No, just upwind from Chernobyl, there's a vineyard. Not downwind, upwind. They're fine. Ukrainian forces and militia is the key. Earlier this morning, the media in the West and the United States, in particular NBC and ABC, attempting to synonymize and homogenize the convoy that's now essentially, if they started in Cali, they're coming through Oklahoma, and they're headed to the White House fast. Well, it doesn't take that long to get across the United States from, L.A. to New York or D.C. It just doesn't. I know you Sally Ann Kavanaughs need extra drivers and a lift, and you got to stop every 3 hours to pee, but no. Ukrainian forces and militia have created a problem. They're not militia, they're citizens. You gave them the guns. That's a well-regulated. That's not regulated. They're not in uniforms and they're not taking orders. Yeah, they are. Zelensky's on Twitter. By the way, if this is such a big crisis and a big threat, what's he doing standing outside tweeting and videoing? The drones are ahead. The satellites are ahead. The phone you're zapping on, they've got that. Wait a minute. Maybe Russia doesn't have the air superiority they claim. Further accounts of the ghost of Ukraine. I'm not going to talk about that again tonight. I did last night. I gave you my opinion. Let's wait another 72 hours. And I'll tell you why, too. Because the country is small enough. Enough of this is happening. Where is that plane landing? No! We want to buy the guy a bottle of vodka. Oh, you don't drink vodka. What do you want? What do we have in this country that is kosher? I stand by my calculated assessment of who the ghost of Ukraine may be in the cockpit. And I did mention the gender of the cockpit, so I apologize for offending you there, too. What offend? What is going to happen when, when I miss the days of, my voice is getting worse and worse and worse. I miss Charles Wrangle. I believe a Democrat out of New York. I believe Hillary kind of pushed him aside. I forget who took over. Charlie, bring back the draft wrangle. In the time of 9/11, actually before that, Gulf War I, Operation Desert Shield, Operation Desert Storm, that'd be 1991. Calls to bring the draft back in the United States. Okay? And then comes Charles Wrangle. Charlie, bring back the draft wrangle was my nickname for him on air. Madam Speaker, I can't even do it. Um, this generation of entitled Nintendo idiots, how self-important they think they are now on Instagram and whatever it is. The sad excuses why they can't go to school, can't wear a mask, can't take a mask off, can't be around others, need a transitional emotional support toy. How do you think they're going to fare with a draft? I'm telling you, it's coming. I wish, and I'm sorry because I'm going to bleep myself when I swear, but I say this next not swearing. I pray to Christ I'm wrong. I really do. We have military experts acting as pundits on CNN, MSNBC, and even Fox News. Essentially, now we are out of the 100-hour window of the military exercise of Russia into Ukraine. And they're discussing the use of tactical nuclear weapons like it is the use of deodorant. Well, I'm sorry to the metrosexuals who don't use deodorant, but in my wargaming and knowledge of military and playing the game of Risk, in the way I was raised with my military raising in military schools and that nonsense, and my friends and how we, you want a secret war? Good job on that one in the late 90s in Denver. Thank you very much. Because the more I think about the secret war back then and how we did that in plain sight in Denver, and the jokes of the no-fly zone, again, 38th Avenue to the mousetrap, 38th to 58th, or whatever, park and to there, and then we have that's the neutral zone, now we have the no-fly zone. By the way, you violated the no-fly zone airspace. You were taken out instantaneously. You were not condemned. We didn't call for a meeting. There wasn't a sit. You wound up in a dumpster. Good night, drive safe. Thanks for coming. Oh, and by the way, very vocal and very verbal. We didn't have a Mr. Shush. We should have. Give it a name. It's not a joke. And then I'm going straight to hell for every crime I ever committed. Admitting them doesn't do John. I'm going straight to hell. And it's going to be a no smoking section. Let me guess. There was a circle in Denver because there are safe spots to operate, safe not to, yada, yada, yada. And there was a power struggle. And there was a group that wanted to do something that we were not going to allow. And we does not matter how many participants and who they were, whether they're alive, whether they're dead. It doesn't matter. But, all right. Because we joke about, the Lord Fletcher Accords, or these things were real. The Dreamhouse Compact was not a joke. Because that's what established the neutral zone. Was Pecos and the Turnpike. I-25, and that other sidewalk. See that? This area that's all the area. You can have all of that. You deviate from that, and it's going to really suck to be you. You can't be everywhere at once. And that's the thing. You don't know who's aligned with who. So you think you're going somewhere safe? Sucks to be you. You're not. Meanwhile, I'm somewhere else. I'm on the other side of town. You just got tossed into a dumpster by 5 people I don't even know. They're with us. We're with them. And you ain't. So you run back to your peeps. A, because you're not. I just got. What were you doing? Why were you in the no? Why'd you leave the no-fly zone? Well, we wanted to stop at a liquor store. That was a dumb move. Better learn your lesson. Don't do that again. Swear to God. And the Boulder Turnpike to the north. Think I'm kidding? And originally, it was Hamden. Hamden had to be extended because radio stations were in the tech center. Swear to God. All right. Well, at Park Meadows, there's nobody down there. All right, so that, hey, you guys get down. Okay, we're good. The only time I moved out of Denver, city proper, to the lake. Well, everybody knows the Lakewood address. Great job reporting in the media. The original was, I want to be X number off of I-25, and we use 6th Avenue. Well, we couldn't find one off a mile. We found you one 3.1 miles up. All right, fair enough. Which was interesting because the reason I got that was because of the deal down at Hamden, and we were 3.1 from Hamden, and I just got a house the other, so it was 7 miles and then the run down 6 to I-25. It was weird, the numerology, how that worked. I am way... How are we talking about a secret war they don't know about? Oh, it was drugs. I'm not going to lie. But it wasn't for us to control and operate. It was to absolutely get rid of anyone associated with who was dealing dope that was in up our liquor licenses. Gotta go. Sorry, you're ruining it for the whole staff. And staffs can be as many as few as a dozen people or just a half a dozen people. And staffs could be as high as a couple hundred people. You are out of your mind if you think we are going to sit here. We don't have the... Oh, yeah, we'll figure it out. You ain't bringing that here. No. Good night. Drive safe. Thanks for coming. Absolutely no way. Scooter, why? Give me one success story with that. Seriously. Not a one. And the parents of the children they didn't know what they bought when they got fentanyl. Those parents need to be taken out back and just be bitch slapped until they cry. You didn't raise kids to be adults. Drugs have consequences. You know how I got raised? You do drugs, you're going to wind up dead or in prison. Is that what you want? Nope. Not really. No. I mean, the boarding school thing I have a big problem with, but can't escape prison. Of course not. Because if you do and we catch you, it's another charge. You know, that and the 3 strikes you're out. You won. One and done. The victims and the parents and the poor them. Oh boy, we are really getting on. Yeah, Secret War is about drugs. And stopping infiltration into a very specific group of buildings that involved... I mean, how bizarre. You'd think you'd want the staff as up as possible. Nope. I've seen those buildings. There's zombies in them. Anyway, let's get back to the news. This pause. The media didn't have a problem continuing to spew Kyiv in process of falling, Kyiv under siege, a surge of troops, the people of Ukraine cowering in makeshift bunkers in the underground subway. Um, the offensive pause, again, is about logistics, getting more. I believe, this is my opinion only, I believe that Putin, what he thought would be shock and awe of massive troops, some shelling, some sabotage, some cyber attacks, I think he really thought they were going to cower to their knees. Also, understanding the sheer amount of corruption inside the Ukraine is no different than inside the Kremlin in Moscow. Um, Many forces being paid to stand down. Some forces, argumentatively, would then also be used to commit acts of sabotage. We've seen that in the what are those, the Tom Clancy Jack Ryan movies? And which one was that where the Russians would pay the Nazi one? The guy, you know what? How would I remember this? The guy who had the Nazi logo underneath on the back of his watch, talking about the New World Order. And he died when he played. Things are going to kill you. When he pushed the cigarette lighter in the car. Which movie was that? The Sum of All Fears. The Sum of All Fears. Having Russian fighter group disguised as or attack its own so they can allege and have the others think it was so. It's a rogue group of, no, they were paid to do that. They're not rogue at all. They're freelancers. They're mercenaries. Hired guns. They just happen to be hired guns in jets. This offensive pause is logistics to get more. And I think we are about to see a second round, a much more visual round of what the Western media likes to talk about, shock and awe. Because they've claimed this was a shock and awe campaign all along, of the shock of people seeing. No. No. Again, I mentioned earlier in the playbook of the tanks, the armored personnel carriers, the paratroopers, the saboteurs, the group forces, the actual marching in the troops and a whole bunch of them going in, the shelling, and the missile attacks, but that although claims of air cover, no aerial bombing to speak of. And I say that because in talking about this offensive pause, now that the Pentagon says they expect it to really ramp up in the next 96 hours, my notes this morning before the Pentagon press conference, what's been so far is a limited air campaign. I said may see escalation in the next 24 to 96 hours. I don't work for the Pentagon. I don't have a high school diploma, and that hadn't come out yet as public. So unless you told Xi and Xi told Putin and Putin told me while I was, jonesing for a cigarette before bed, you're on drugs. Because again, how would you write that down before? Well, because this is what I'm seeing, and in the world of military operations, this isn't a bluff. It's a bluff when you're all on the thing and you say invasion's tomorrow morning and invasion isn't tomorrow morning. That's a bluff. We're not seeing a bluff. I still have the argument that we may be seeing a psyop, and I'm going to stand to that until... Oh, no. No, they detonated a nuke. By the way, and that's what's going to happen. You can't keep discussing nuclear weapons for 24 hours without getting somebody, excited. And the sheer discussion of tactical nuclear weapons. What happened to all the suitcase bombs that disappeared during the Cold War? Clearly, the media is caught in the first lie in the narrative that it's no longer a military exercise. Most of the Western media now is calling Putin crazy and a madman. Again, repeat it enough and enough and enough. Maybe people will believe it. And a concern for war. Well, when you invade another country, what happens? Typically a declaration of war. We don't do that in the international community. We get together, we have a meeting, we vote as to whether we should decide to do something or not. All right. The bully is still kicking your ass out in the parking lot. Even though the bully is taking significant blows, you're an inexperienced fighter, but these haymakers are catching him once in a while. Here are the items to watch for the last day of February, the first day of March 2022. Ground forces will resurge. The pause is most likely over, and I say that because as we approach 9 o'clock in the morning Monday in Ukraine, the again controlling and quarantining cities, I think, is going to escalate. And by nightfall, post 10 o'clock and curfew, I would expect to see some big bursts on the web streams you're watching. I would also expect to see many more of these streams go down because of reports of not just the group anonymous hacking websites, including RT, but that continued offensive cyber attacks are expected over this same 24 and 96 hour period. You could be threatened right there in Omaha, or Key Largo, or even Mar-a-Lago. I believe Russia is going to resume a major offensive because now they have to save face. They have to get to the river. If nothing else, then this was all for nothing. To take at least half of the Ukraine, but the egos and the rhetoric that is being spewed now by either side, I don't think they can turn this off. Back to the nuclear tangent. In the world of nuclear weapon, you have the you have the missiles, the bombers, and the submarines. They are designed for each a purpose, and there is a period in between for the pause. The pause is not to figure out how to win this thing. The pause is so calmer heads come to the table. Meanwhile, President Zelensky, has agreed. I want to make sure I get the phrasing. Zelensky has agreed to send a delegation to Belarus to negotiate, if at all, with Putin. If Putin has been lying the whole time leading up to this, how do you negotiate? Hence calls in the international courts for removal, no longer recognize the government, and put one up in its place. That's not how this works. But you keep your methodology of thinking and you think that this is going to work, okay. Germany has announced it will be delivering weapons to the Ukraine to defend itself as well against the Russian attacks. Belarus has approved a new constitution. They have abandoned their non-nuclear status. So does this allow now for Russia to put nuclear weapons in? Or does this allow for any other nuclear power, Israel, and, just provide a little backup for the ghost pilot in case something goes bad? Don't know, but this is another data point. Belarus approved a new constitution over the weekend, abandoning its non-nuclear status. We are hearing now allegations of unprecedented sanctions from the European Union, including or excluding, depending upon how you want to look at this, certain Russian banks from the SWIFT process of accepting monies, funds, transfers. Also, in their unprecedented sanctions, going after individuals in the aristocracy of the higher-ups and the elite in Kremlin. The Russian stock market saw almost a 50% drop. The ruble saw almost a 30% drop, but continues, again, because it's Monday and it's not even 9 a.m. yet. By initial accounts, it would be fair to say that Putin's original shock and awe campaign has failed. And they certainly never expected this many Ukrainians to stand up. What's frightening is, here in the United States, no one's running. Well, everybody's got their ammo and their vests and everything now. It's just these, whatever. Condemnation, coming together, raising awareness, raising money, breaking vodka bottles, boycotting, virtue signaling. That's going to lead us to a very, very deadly place. And that is not some attack on you for your beliefs. It is that overwhelming might and force will crush us all, including your belief system of that. That we can all come together and negotiate with madmen. He's not a madman. He's not a lunatic. And your president, our president, my president, their president, how about we all have them take a cognitive test? Let's see if Zelensky's crazy. Let's see if Putin's crazy. Let's see if Biden's crazy. Let's have a comparison. But just stop with the rhetoric that everyone's a madman because you don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. Because you're showing your ignorance. You don't understand the Soviet culture. You don't understand the pride of the Russian people, let alone the pride of the Ukrainian people, or the Slavic people, or the Polish people. Here is a satirical joke and a reason for you to think. In the world of Archie Bunker, the infamous Polak joke, insert there. But in demonizing a Polish person, it's the same with the Irish terrorist. How'd the Irish terrorist burn his mouth? By putting his mouth on the tailpipe. How did the Irishman burn his face? Bobbing for French fries. You can go on and on and on. But there were Polish jokes. In getting rid of the Polish joke, did we as the West in America then no longer pay attention to the Polish culture? I know you love a good pierogi, but no, I mean that. The pride of the Polish people, the pride of the Ukrainian people, the pride of the Slavic people. I know America talks a good game that we're proud of our flags and our symbols of whatever sex you're going to claim you are next. And that's not what we're talking about when I'm talking about the historical cultural pride and the fact that the people, for example, are not going to give up. President Putin has announced, the West media has announced that President Putin has placed his nuclear forces on high alert status. Not to be outdone here in the West, reports that the United States military are at Defcon 2. Anywhere you read that, take that, crumple it, and wipe your butt with it. Pentagon and NORAD does not answer United States Strategic Air Command, and it's NORAD, and it's now U.S. Space Command, and we've got CENTCOM, and hey, we don't issue press releases that let our alert status. What are you, gonna high? By the way, if we're at DEFCON 2, does that mean on Monday or on Thursday so they can own the news cycle after what will be most likely a debacle at the State of the Union? We may see a potential terror attack. We could see a cyber attack. How will it look when the world is watching and suddenly, right out of V for Vendetta, the channel changes? What the hell's happening here? I don't want to get tangented down there. The announcement that the United States military is a Defcon 2. By the way, you don't print an immediate retraction on that. I don't believe anything that you're ever going to say again. It's simply not true. They don't announce. There's no press release. You are in drugs if you believe that. But I read it, and it must be. I'm just said there. This is what they're reporting, and I don't believe a word of it. I mentioned the doomsday clock. How are they going to change and embrace the story after what could be a horrible debacle at the State of the Union for 3-1? Oh, why do I know that these morons are going to come out and want to move the doomsday clock closer to midnight? But let's ask where the doomsday plane is. Where is Looking Glass? Looking Glass was the project for all of what started the Conspiracy Keepers, Operation Looking Glass, Countdown to Looking Glass, and then just Looking Glass. But Looking Glass was popularized by, what the hell was the name of that movie? The news drama mockumentary. Oh, it was called Countdown to Looking Glass, simulating what would happen in the escalation of events, starting with bank collapse that ultimately wound up in the Gulf region, and then the nuclear exchange of weapons. At that moment, where's the president? The president right now is being swiftly evacuated to Andrews Air Force Base, or Edwards Air Force Base. That's Washington, D.C. Joint Base is what. See, we changed the names. Andrews Air Force Base is on the Atlantic. Edwards is on the west. Unless dyslexia, I moved him again. He's being taken to the runway, and he's getting on the doomsday plane. The command control. Again, Air Force One has many wonderful qualities, but remember, even 9/11, the doomsday plane. Plus, the Navy has their own. In understanding if we're really going here, Harpoon has left the building. Harpoon is in the air. Because if it goes sideways and we're all that's left down there, when they pop their heads up, they better have the right orders, or God help the rest of anybody that's left. But in the scenario of NORAD, when do you seal the mountain? 5, 4, 3. Oh, hey! Hi! What are you still doing here? You wanting me to give you orders to leave? Let me guess. You want permission to leave. Go! The president is on his command control. The Joint Chiefs, etc., they hopefully get them all on one. They may have to be on a backup. Well, thank God we have backup aircraft. But the U.S. Navy, under 20th century conventional warfare leading up to 9/11, I just call it Harpoon. It's their own command aircraft, which I will presume is just similar to Doomsday. But these reports of Defcon 2, hey guy, they're worthless. I did get to the Pentagon stuff. And then this is your last one, because we're approaching midnight. We are approaching 9 a.m., what would be a normal business day for the last day of February 2022 in the Ukraine. Kyiv, the capital city, or 10 a.m., approaching 10 a.m. Moscow time. You say Planet of the Apes, and whatever comes into your brain, if it's negative, that's on you. This is Planet of the Apes, the original, the video version, the media version, not Pierre Boulez's. Again, adapted Pierre Boulez's book, Planet of the Apes, by Rod Serling at the end of the day. Do you know how many different scripts they had to go through to get to that? And then how did we get to what was written? This is great. No, it's not. Because we don't have the digital technology to do it. So instead of advancing the process, we're going to reverse the process. Hence why they're in the Stone Age. And the best of the remakes was the one with Wahlberg, where at the end of the movie he arrives in D.C. and finds Thaddeus. Oh, that last 90 seconds of the reboot of Planet of the Apes is the closest that they've ever gotten. Of wait a minute, there's holy, oh my God, But in the original successful movie, starring Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall and Kim Hunter and Maurice Evans, an amazing ensemble cast, created the franchise. It creates Beneath the Planet of the Apes, where another piece of the puzzle is explained. You bloody baboon. And the end, the doomsday weapon, the Alpha Omega bomb. And an irradiated people of underground who've, because of silence and oppression, have developed telekinetic power. Not only to communicate with each other, but create illusions of weapons. Illusions of weapons. Now, meanwhile, while all of that is going on, you didn't know that some chimpanzees snuck out through the Forbidden Zone, got the spaceship up out of the dead water, got it all the way back to Ape City, and they started taking it apart. And they figured it out, and they refueled it, and they got in the astronaut suits, and they took off. Just as they're leaving, they look back and see the rim of the Earth melt. Okay. So we went from the Planet of the Apes to Beneath the Planet of the Apes to now Escape the Planet of the Apes. And enter my favorite character, Dr. Hassline. Dr. Hassline is one scary mother. Because what if you could go back in time? What if we find out that these two chimpanzees, and you want to mess with the time-space continuum in a way that, again, Einstein versus Hassline's theory of relativity, and more like string theory of multiple lanes. Well, I won't give you a spoiler alert for the Escape from the Planet of the Apes. This franchise continues to now the conquest for the Planet of the Apes. Oh, there is a spoiler alert. Right before we kill... What? Oh no, Cornelius and Zira have to go. No! It's good news. There's a baby. Alright. Fast forward in the timetable and the timeline of now back on 20th century Earth, where the chimpanzee, was born, is a circus. Adorned not in a canvas tent, but fine Corinthian leather. And the ringmaster and the owner of the circus is Ricardo Montalban, a devout Catholic. I just say Catholic, not Christian. A devout follower of St. Francis of Assisi. We fast forward about 20 years. This Planet of the Apes story better be good because I got to go to bed or go to work. Okay? Just for the record, we're at the end. Planet of the Apes and one more headline. This is right out of Planet of the Apes. I need another cigarette. You know what I need? Is a cold Coca-Cola. Radio, I was always used to getting a 15-minute and have a quick puff and get a good slam. So, fast forward 20 years, and the newborn chimpanzee is an adult. He's a trained circus ape. And this is the first time to the huge metropolis because this chimpanzee's been around humans. They come to the circus. He can hide. He has spent too much time with humans. He's learning human traits. He's developed human intelligence. No, he has simian intelligence, but because meanwhile, it is to his shock that his owner, his friend, has omitted, in keeping him kind of hidden, something else on the planet happened. Well, when Zira and Cornelius came back in time, the astronauts brought a plague, and apenauts brought a plague, and it killed the pets, dogs and cats. Humans loved their pets. But they figured out, again, I get kicked out of a private Catholic school because I'm at the Como Zoo and I ask, how long does it take for the gorilla in the cage? I'm like 6. So, all right. How long does it take for the gorilla to get out before it, gets on horseback and starts shooting people? Wasn't that visual, but it's how long before they can talk. And Sister Mary Frances just about had a cow right there in the primate room. Sent to the bus. Horrible day. Get home. Oh, good. Here comes another beating. Ow! Planet of the Apes. Cats. Dogs. Humans need a pet. So they took chimpanzees as pets. And they realized how clever they were. So they trained them to do, be slaves. Just be butlers and servants. Because you don't have to pay them. You just give them a couple raisins. Well, it then finally happens. After, and the story of the narrative of the script. And it was Aldo, not Caesar. And that Aldo said a word he had heard thousands of times before to a human. He said no. Because how did the apes take over? The argument was that it was nuclear weapons and we did it to ourselves. Well, in how that was written, no. Guess again. The politics of the time also prevented what was supposed to be the real ending, with now Caesar having his master now about to become his slave, and the mob about to come down on him. And in that movie, his love interest and lieutenant in the guerrilla warfare going on between the chimpanzees and the gorillas, because again, the orangutans They're not. They're really not. Dr. Zayas? No, he's not in that one. Because in the test markets, we can't show that. The kids are going to run out of the theaters. Yeah, they won. Should have shown it. You really should have. Did we use the bomb as an attempt to go after not the enemy, but what we thought was our pet? That's the end of our Planet of the Apes discussion, because here's your last headline. You know, the world is about to change forever. The media is now reporting the first case of COVID in dogs. We have our first confirmed canine COVID positive. Woohoo! Yippee! No, we don't get to blame Elon Musk and the Starlink satellites for. Yeah, by the way, you're still going to need the encoding devices and everything else in the Ukraine, just like you'd need it in LA, New York, Langley, anywhere. You just don't, because the satellites above you doesn't mean you get Starlink. Doesn't work like that just yet. But I know it's a good narrative for the media to keep pushing and for Elon to keep basking in that glory. Still, it was a huge move to move it. But you need the encoding, decoding devices in the Ukraine to actually access Starlink. Hate to bring up the obvious. The media is going to have you now focus on COVID and canines. And the bird flu, we may have to get rid of a whole bunch of chickens really quick, as an abundance of caution. We don't know yet. We're also looking at some data, well, about 90% of it from the CDC that didn't seem to fit the narrative, that was not going to be published. And their explanation of why they didn't publish it is not holding up. But we'll see. A lot's going to happen in the next 24 hours, and I look forward to seeing all of you at 1 a.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. Mountain, right here on YouTube. Please subscribe to me. If you like the product, share it. If you don't, give me critique. Maybe I can do something. But these long-winded Planet of the Apes stories are not going to fly. I'm just pointing out if art's imitating life or if life is imitating art. And is there anything we can learn from the preconditioning of that? It's a question that should be legitimately asked. And if it's a stupid question, well, I'm good at those. So I apologize for wasting your time. Follow me on Twitter, The Scooter McGee. Follow me on Facebook, The Scooter McGee. You can follow me on Patreon, The Scooter McGee. And I hope you'll like this, and I hope you'll share it. And I hope to see all of you Monday. Headlines, 11 p.m. Mountain Time. 3-1 if you're, 1 a.m. Eastern. So, see you tomorrow. See you later. See you in the funny papers. Hail the Republic. Question everything you're seeing. Do your own research. Do your own due diligence. Don't let someone else unpack it for you. Don't let somebody else lay it out for you. Don't have someone else tell you what you need to know. Only you know what you need to know. And don't stop finding out the truth. Question the narrative. Question authority. And hopefully we are going to be able to save this great republic and let the rest of the idiots worry about democracy. Democracy is a mob, 5149. And that's what they're trying to turn all of this into. Don't let them do it. Until next time, good night, Gotham.